Most camper vans look absolutely fine on the outside. It's only until you start digging in deep and you start looking inside where you see the same 5 mistakes we keep seeing as camper van converters. In this video, I'm going to show you what they are and how to avoid them.
If you're using cheap quality materials in your build, then you're going to end up with a subpar product at the end of the day. In this section, we're going to be talking about insulation and dampness. Without the right insulation, you're going to end up with damp in your panels. So the insulation can be something that's really costly to repair or to replace later on, because you're putting your furniture in front of these panels. If somebody comes into us and their van's freezing cold, or if it's damp within the panel work and they're starting to get rust underneath, for us to replace that, we'd have to take out the product that's inside, take out all their cupboards to get into the panel work behind it, and take out the damp material and replace it with something dry. That's why it's really important to get it done properly from the ground running. We've seen everything over the years, from people packing in newspaper to lamb's wool to loft insulation. That's one we see all the time. Loft insulation doesn't drain away water, it holds water. If you put some loft insulation into a bucket of water and pull it out, it's like a sponge. It will be really absorbent and it will really hold that moisture. You are going to get moisture into your panels. It's almost impossible to stop it. Lamb's wool is a definite no-no for me. It was very popular in the 70s, especially with the old split-screen camper vans. The problem with that is if it gets damp, the whole van smells like a sheep shed. So how do we fix it? Well, what we do is we start off with your soundproofing, which goes on to the metalwork of the panel itself. And the soundproofing will just take away the hum that's created from the vibration. You know what it's like if something's vibrating and you put your hand to it, the noise stops. Well, that's what the soundproofing does. This product here, which is a thermal liner that comes from Dodo. And then on top of that, we fit a Dodo thermal fleece. They're really good quality products. This is basically a van equivalent of the loft insulation of the fiberglass wool. It doesn't hold any moisture. From there, we then cover up the panel with your carpet in. You can still get air to flow in between with your heater and with the doors being open, and it allows everything to remain dry and to remain the same kind of environment as what's inside the vehicle.
When it comes to fitting and bonding the windows onto your van, it's really, really important that you're using the correct adhesive material. Time and time again, we see people using the incorrect products. So, you know, people using silicone to bond their windows. This is great for fish tanks, not for vans. So when it comes to fitting and bonding your windows, you need a really good polyurethane-based adhesive. So mistake 2 definitely has to be gas setup. We see time and time again vans coming to us with really dodgy gas setups. Vans that are coming in with gas canisters that are strapped with a bungee cord, pipe work going through really sharp metal holes, and no ventilation at all.
So what's the fix? Ideally, you want to start from the ground up. So if you're doing a new conversion, then you want to start off by doing your research, building your gas system properly and working out the errors not to make from there. If you've bought a vehicle and it has a bad gas system, or if you've installed one and just realised that you've not done it properly, how do you fix it? Well, you want to look at securing your bottle. If your bottle is just floating around in a cupboard or even just sitting in the back of your van that we quite often see, you need to take care of that. It needs to be housed properly. You need to have 2 methods of strapping it down. So one good and cheap, easy way is to have some sort of belt like this that you can strap round about the bottle. And you can just screw this into the metal canister or against the back of a cupboard. That's one form. What you need is a second one, a fail-safe, so that if that strap was to break or in the event of an accident, that bottle's not going to go flying around in the van, causing damage and being dangerous. So one thing you can have for that is you can have a board at the bottom with a cut out the shape of the size of the bottle, or you can just have a secondary strap because the chances of 2 of them failing are quite small. So now that you've got your bottle secure, you need to think to yourself, do I want to have it in a sealed container like this metal box? It's not a legal requirement, you don't have to have it. As long as your gas canister is in a ventilated box, then you should be okay. If you've got a cupboard, you want to have rubber strips round about any sort of doors to stop any gas leaking into the habitation area of the van, so that in the event of a leak, if the bottle leaks in the middle of the night, you want to know that it's not going to come into your living area. You have to have a drop vent in the bottom of the canister that is an appropriate size for the gas bottle that you've got, and that's because the gas in the bottle is heavier than air, so if it does leak, you want it to be able to leak out of the van through the floor and not into the living compartment. You're also going to need to have some sort of ventilation to allow air to come in, which will then allow that gas to drop out. So you need to make sure that you don't just drill a small hole in the floor and hope for the best. You need to have proper, adequate ventilation in that box. When it comes to pipe work, you are allowed to have a rubber hose on your gas bottle. You're not allowed to have the rubber hose going from the bottle to the appliance. it must go through a regulator, and that regulator must be a bulkhead regulator, which means that it must be fastened onto the bulkhead, which is either the back of a cupboard or onto the back of a canister like this. So you want to have a bulkhead regulator. You can have your rubber pigtail, which is this piece here, going from your bottle to your regulator. The reason you're allowed to have that as rubber is so it gives you some stretch that you can bring the bottle out and move it in without having to get in there with spanners. But then from your regulator, all pipework must be solid. So you can use steel or you can use copper. The most common is copper. We use an 8mm copper pipe, which will then go from our regulator to our appliances. Really, that should also go through an ECV, an emergency shut-off valve. That allows you to isolate any appliances, so you need one for each appliance. Very good for if there's an emergency, something's on fire in the hob or something's not working correct, and you can't get to the controls on there, you can just go down to your ECV and turn it off. And finally, no matter what your gas system's like, you need to have it tested. Once you've had it tested, you'll know if it's going to leak, or you'll know if it is leaking already, and if it's not leaking, then you know that it's safe. You won't be able to get a proper test done, you won't get a certificate for it unless you've got a proper gas setup, and it just lets you sleep at night knowing that everyone staying in your van is safe.
Mistake number 3 definitely has to be electrics, and this is where a lot of DIY builds can go wrong if you're not using the correct components, correct fuses, correct wires. If you're using dodgy knockoff parts that you think are going to be a way to save money, actually could end up being a big mistake. So with one of the biggest things that we see is setups that have got undersized wires or cables, not having enough fuses or not having any fuses. All of these can be a really big mess if it's done wrong. Our fix to this is simple. Correct spec'd cable sizes, fuses on every circuit, a safe, correct lithium setup that's designed to last. It's not just about looking tidy, it's about safety. Mistake number 4 comes in with this one, and it's a big one: weight and payload. We keep seeing this time and time again where people are cramming in big materials, like they're using oak worktops, or they're adding more seating in, or they're putting in these big water tanks that they would never have to worry about filling water up when they're away. All of these things are great if you can adjust to the payload that you're legally allowed. Time and time again, we keep seeing people putting in these heavy materials without having the final weight load in their mind when they're doing their builds.
So how do we combat the weight issue when it comes to building a vehicle? It's a really difficult one, and it's one that we take right from the get-go, right from the initial concept of the build. When we initially sit down with the customer to talk about their design, we discuss what parts are going to be taken with them. Do they have specific hobbies? Are they carrying e-bikes? Are they bringing motorbikes? Take a look at the driver's age. Do they have the grandfather license, which allows them to drive up to, I believe it's 7.5 tons? Are they willing to take a test and do a course to expand that license? Quite often with this size of vehicle, it is necessary. With our basic build, our standard build that we start from, on a two-wheel drive, you're looking about 3.2 tons. So that's not leaving you a huge payload. Once you're fully packed, you're going to be close to the 3.5 ton mark. Pretty much most of our customers we're advising to have the vehicle upplated either after the fact, or to, if they're buying a new vehicle, to have it as a heavier weight, either 3.8 or the 4.1 ton category. It makes it an awful lot easier doing the build. It also means that the customer doesn't need to worry about what they can and what they can't bring with them, and it's just something extra not to worry about when you're packing up your van. In terms of what we do inside the build to try and keep that weight down, we tend to find that our customers with each build will want more and more in the vehicle. They've seen more on the videos we do, and so they start off with an idea of what they're having and then say, oh, I'd like this and I'd like that, and they add on as the build goes. With that, the weight creeps up. To combat that, we take the materials that we've got, such as the plywood, and we try and keep them as light as possible. In the design of the furniture itself, we try and limit the amount of wood that goes into it. We do that through cutouts, through completely deleting panels if we can. If they're not going to be load bearing and you're not going to see them, then do they need to be there? For instance, with the sides of the drawer carcasses, do you need two solid fixed drawer carcasses, or do you just need the strips where the drawer runners are going to be? And can you cut out the section in between? Because every bit that you can remove from that panel is going to be a little bit less weight for your van to have to carry. And the third way is the actual material itself. Where we can, we try and use a GRP sandwich panel, sometimes known as like an air ply, which is a thin sheet of wood with a foam core and then another thin sheet of wood. It's much lighter than standard plywood. Even the plywood we're using, it's not standard grade plywood. It's a very lightweight poplar ply. You can lift a full sheet pretty much with one hand. When it comes to our countertops. These look like they're one solid sheet of really thick material of composite. They're not. It's made up of a mixture of 12mm and 6mm. It's a 6mm top with a 12mm skirt all round about it, and then we build up the panel inside with the lightweight ply, and that really helps keep the weight down. So you get the appearance of the solid surface as if it's a really thick top. It's fully functional, but it keeps the weight to an absolute minimum. So we try and think about that with all our materials in the van, from the floors to the metalwork in the van, everything that we can, we try and keep it to aluminium. Any rear step ladders, spare wheel carriers, storage box containers, we make them out of aluminium rather than steel, just to try and keep that weight down, especially with our underfloor armour as well, engine sump guards, that sort of stuff. What you need to try and avoid though is ruining the strength of your build by removing material to try and keep the weight down. So you want it to be good and strong and well built, but also you really need to be having that weight category at the very top of your mind.
Mistake number 5 comes in at using knockoffs and cheap alternatives. Unregulated parts will be a cheaper alternative. The reason for this is because the companies aren't putting that specific product through rigorous testing that is demanded by the British regulations. Our Fix, we only fit top quality, fully tested, certified parts. These were all the 5 mistakes we see all the time and how we fix them. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We drop a video like this every week.